When you're standing in the backyard, looking at that empty patch of soil and wondering whether a greenhouse is worth the space, the money, and the effort, the first question that pops up is always the same. Will it actually help me grow what I want without becoming a constant maintenance headache? I get that hesitation because I've watched a lot of people buy a structure, only to end up with something that either can't handle the weather in their region or turns into a seasonal storage closet that gathers dust. In this review, I'm going to walk through the real-world experience of setting up and using the Palram Canopia Mythos 6x14 greenhouse, so you can decide if it truly fits the garden you have in mind. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the size. 6 feet wide by 14 feet long is a sweet spot for a hobbyist who wants more than a tabletop seedling tray but doesn't have the acreage for a commercial-scale operation. It gives you room for a couple of rows of tomatoes, a small herb garden, or a few potting benches, while still fitting comfortably between a patio and a fence. That footprint also means the door is big enough to roll a cart of soil or a wheelbarrow in, which is a practical detail that often gets glossed over in spec sheets. The frame is aluminum with a galvanized steel base, and that combination does the job of staying rust-free even after a wet season. I've installed it in a region where we get a mix of heavy rain, occasional snow, and those gusty spring winds that can make a lightweight plastic tunnel flutter like a flag. The base bolts directly into the ground, and the aluminum profiles are pre-drilled, so you're not spending hours figuring out which holes line up. The whole thing arrives in a flat-packed box, and the instructions walk you through the assembly step by step. For someone who isn't a carpenter, the biggest gotcha is making sure the roof vents line up with the pre-drilled slots. Once they're in place, the two adjustable vents give you a straightforward way to vent heat on hot summer days without having to climb up on a ladder. Now, the panels. Palram uses 4mm twin-wall polycarbonate, which is marketed as virtually unbreakable and blocks up to 99.9% of UV light. In practice, that means you get a bright interior without the harsh sun that can scorch seedlings, while still protecting delicate plants from sunburn. The twin-wall design also provides an insulating air gap, which helps keep temperatures a few degrees higher than outside when it's chilly. In my own testing, the greenhouse stayed about 5°F warmer than the ambient night temperature, enough to keep basil and lettuce alive through a light frost without turning on any supplemental heat. One of the strengths that shows up only after a season or two is the snow load rating, 15.4 pounds per square foot. That's roughly the weight of a foot of fresh, dry snow spread across the roof. If you live in an area that gets heavier, wet snow, you'll need to clear it manually, but for most moderate climates the rating is generous. The wind rating of 56 miles per hour gusts also feels reassuring when you're watching a thunderstorm roll through. The aluminum frame flexes just enough to absorb the pressure without popping panels, and the galvanized base anchors the whole structure firmly. Where the Mythos shows a hidden trade-off is the rain gutter system. The greenhouse includes built-in gutters that run along the edge of the roof and funnel water into a single downspout. In theory, that's great for collecting water for irrigation, but the gutter's capacity is limited. During a heavy downpour, I noticed water spilling over the edge, especially when the vents were fully closed. The solution is simple: keep the vents partially open during storms, which also helps reduce internal humidity that can foster mildew. It's a minor adjustment, but something you'll learn to manage if you want to keep the interior dry. If you're a serious year-round grower who plans to use heating mats, grow lights, and maybe even a small fan for airflow, the Mythos provides the necessary space and ventilation points to mount those accessories. The door hinges are sturdy, and the door itself stays level even after repeated opening and closing, which is crucial when you're hauling equipment in and out. On the downside, the door does not have a built-in lock, so if you're concerned about pets or small children accessing the interior, you'll need to add a simple latch yourself. Who should buy this greenhouse? If you're a weekend gardener who wants a reliable, low-maintenance space to start seedlings, grow a few summer vegetables, and perhaps experiment with dwarf fruit trees, the Palram Canopia Mythos hits the sweet spot. Its size is generous enough for mixed planting. The polycarbonate panels give you a decent thermal buffer without the brittleness of glass, and the rust-resistant frame means you won't be repainting or replacing parts every few years. It's also a good fit for those who live in regions with moderate snow and